Good evening or good morning, depending on when are you watching us. My name is Konrad Wirkowski. I'm the programming director of WATCHDOCS Human Rights in Film Festival, and I have a pleasure of hosting the talk today with Eefje and Els, the directors of Shadow Game and Jano and Shiro documentaries that are shown at our festival. Hello.
Hi.
Good evening. Hello.
So I must say it's really a pleasure that we're very happy that we can show your film or your films, in fact, at our festival. And I would like to start our talk with asking about the initial idea for the film. Where did it came from? I mean, why did you have this idea of making the film about, or idea was from the beginning to make a film about underage migrants, or you started with some other idea, or was it like prepared very much step by step? How was it?
Well, it was prepared and not prepared. It was guerrilla filmmaking to the core, I think. But it did start with the idea. It started, I think, around 5 years ago already, when Els and I, and also our researcher Zohor Al-Kaisi, were on the island of Lesbos in Greece for our former film, The Deal, about the consequences of the EU-Turkey deal.
Yeah,
and there
we've screened that film also.
Yeah,
some years ago.
Yeah, great. So we were there and we were walking around in the harbor of Mytilene, and we saw this young boy wearing a very big coat, way too big, and he looked really lost. So we thought, well, we'll talk to him. And he actually was indeed underage. He was 15 years old. He was from Gambia. And he told us that he was actually living in the adult part of Camp Moria, the horrible Camp Moria. I think most people have heard about it. And he didn't really knew where he was. He knew he was in Europe, but not really anything else. He didn't have any access to information. He didn't go to school. He didn't have access to any medical or psychological help. So we were quite shocked, because this was Europe, this was the EU. And he has, all these rights as a child, because of course we signed the Children's Rights Convention, Refugee Treaty, Human Rights Conventions. But actually he didn't have any of these rights protected there. So that was really a starting point for us, thinking like, what is happening to all these other unaccompanied minors then? All these children trying to find protection in Europe. So that was really the start of our new research. And then we just went through all these places in Europe where we knew that people who had fled their countries were trying to cross borders and were stuck. And from the beginning, we knew we wanted to make this film about children, completely from their perspective.
So it was like, so when you have found, the characters, then you started to follow them, I suppose. And for how long were you following the guys?
Well, it depended on where we met them and how long we could follow them. But we have been filming for mainly in the year of 2018 and 2019. But we're still following the guys. We're still in contact with them, with all of them. And for instance, Jano and Shiro, we met them in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And which was really interesting was that we hang around with them for some time, and we were just, connecting and asking, how are you? What is happening here? How does it work? Where are you going? And they really liked to share their story. They were glad someone asked, because Jano also said, I have filmed my own journey with my cell phone. Do you want to see the footage? And we were completely surprised, because he had all this food journey that he did from Turkey up till Bosnia, he had filmed, and in a very spontaneous and very intimate way. And of course, we were thinking, of course, this is a generation of storytellers. They are all on social media. So they put it on TikTok or on YouTube even, or Facebook. And we asked Jano, why did you film? What do you want to do with the material? And he said, well, I just want it as a proof. Whenever I will arrive, people will not believe me. And for us, that was like remarkable, because then he also said, so I want to participate in your documentary, but let's do it together. And that was also the starting point of doing more collaboration with the kids themselves. And of course, it was also practical because we could not join them when they would cross the border, because that's too dangerous for them to jeopardize their game. And it is too dangerous for us. It would be illegal for us to do that.
And the idea for the game, was it like you just filmed it, or you somehow used it and they picked it up? Or how was it?
No, it was the other way around. We were, I think, it was on the border with Serbia and Hungary that we were hanging out with this group of mostly Afghan and Pakistani boys, and they would speak in their own language, but we would pick up some words and it would be game, game, and we were like, what are you talking about? What is this game? And then they explained, well, when we cross the border, we call it the game. And at first we were really shocked to hear this, because it's really, really dangerous. I mean, people lose their lives trying to cross. So we at first didn't really understand how they could use this sort of funny word for it. But then we started to understand that it's a coping mechanism. It's a way to deal with this enormous journey full of dangers, to see it as a game, but also to cut it up in somehow in levels. If you cut it up in small parts and you can make that level, then it becomes comprehensible. Otherwise, it's just too big. So actually, it's because of them that we started to use this word, the game. And over the last 3-4 years that we've been working on this project, we've heard this term, become such a normal term for everyone now. Everybody's using the term the game now.
Yeah, and about this being stuck, I mean, in your film, we can see clearly that it's not that, because I mean, a lot of people have this image that they just start the journey and come into Germany, from Syria or from Afghanistan, and it's the other way around. I mean, they get stuck for a few years sometimes, and at different borders. So I mean, it can be seen clearly in your film, but also I wanted to ask, because I suppose you have spent quite a lot of time with these guys, and they are at a very difficult point. I mean, before crossing this border and so on, and so I mean, it must have been also hard for you. I mean, like in this, because I suppose you somehow want to help or do something like to help them cross this border. And did you do something like that, or it can be done?
No, it can't be done. Of course, they have to do it themselves. And of course, we couldn't join them. As I explained, it would be illegal for us. But what we did was, we said, okay, we cannot help you to cross the border. We cannot help you to get a passport, for instance. But what we can do is stay in touch with you and connect you to the right people if you need help. And that is something that probably helped them to have a lifeline, in a sense, because normally they won't communicate with their parents or family back home about the shitty situation they are in. And it was good for them, I think, to have a lifeline, to have someone who they could call or text whenever they needed something. And we were back home, for instance. So we tried to connect, and we were we were constantly asking, where are you now? How are you doing? And of course, it was very worrisome often when we flew back home, because we had to leave them there and we didn't know if they would survive the game. It was really, really tough. And we were so worried. And every time, when they were online again, we were so glad, because sometimes it was for weeks we didn't hear from them. And that was the hardest part, in a sense, that we never knew if we would meet them again, if they would survive.
Sure. And you said that you're in touch with them. Are you still in touch with the boys?
Yes, with all of them. So we stayed in touch through WhatsApp or Messenger from Facebook. And indeed, as Elle said, sometimes it would take, a few weeks that we didn't know where they were, but we always reconnected. And now I think with some of them, we're in touch on a daily basis, some maybe once a month, it depends. Some are still somehow in a journey in procedure, some already finished their procedure and have a permit now to stay in different countries, so they can start a new life, which is difficult as well. So, I mean, the journey is not over in that sense, but yeah, we are in touch all the time.
Yeah, because also I have this feeling. I mean, after seeing many of the films on migration and on the crossing of the border, and sometimes it's like this whole journey is just the first part. I mean, and then it all begins anew, like when they're already in the countries where they want to stay, because then starts the procedure, and then there's this void completely, like when they are put in the, I mean, nowhere, with no right to work and so no papers, like, because when they're on the move, they're like really live with this movement, yeah, and then suddenly everything stops, and they're like cut off from the world.
Yeah, that's what you see very clearly in the Jano and Shiru film, right? Because Jano is 18 when he arrives in the Netherlands, so he's formally an adult, and he comes in the adult system of waiting in an asylum center far from the city, and he's left alone. There's no courses going on, there's corona, there's waiting lists for everything, and he cannot go out. And then the haunting of his trauma starts and the nightmares of the journey. Whereas his brother, who is 16, he is still on the move. He can go to school, there's there are people taking care of him, and that is such a big difference, and it is healing for a person to go on with his life, to have something to do, to have education, of course, to also heal the trauma of the journey and to go on. And that was the hardest part for Jano. And he was stuck for almost 1.5 years here in the Netherlands before he got a final say of, okay, you can stay. And then, of course, a new journey starts, because he has to reintegrate in a village somewhere in the Netherlands with no other Syrians in town, and it's very complicated.
And whom else were you following also from the silent game? I mean, which boys?
Well, so we were making short docs, so follow-up documentaries. Now we finished 3. One of them is Jano and Shiru, and then we have one about Durab, who's from Pakistan. He ended up in Slovenia, but actually he also ended up in this, we call it somehow a shadow world of crime, of trafficking, human smuggling. He was only 14 years old when he started his journey. And of course, when you're so young, you're very vulnerable and you're an easy prey for this kind of criminal networks. So in his follow-up documentary, you see that he's sort of trapped in this world and he doesn't really know what to do. So that's the story about him. And then we have another story about Mohammed, who's the 14-year-old boy, the youngest one in the film, in Shadow Game, who ends up also in the Netherlands. And he tries to also start his new life. He dreams of becoming a doctor. So he's trying really his best in school. And he has another huge dream, and that's to bring his mother and sisters here to the Netherlands through family reunification, because they are still stuck in Syria. And of course, that's also something that a lot of unaccompanied minors face, this uncertainty, the worries about their families back home. And that's really what the film of Mohammed is about. Then we're also still following some of the other kids, for example, Eski, the Afghan vlogger, we call him, the boy from Afghanistan who's vlogging all the time. He arrived after a really, really long journey in Belgium. He was on his way over 2 years in the end. And I think when Shadow Game finishes, it took him another year to finally reach safety, because it just became so difficult to cross the borders, also due to COVID, but the violence is getting worse and worse. So we're still following him. And for him as well, as you just described, he was on his way for 2 years living on adrenaline. And it's just really a tough journey, but he had one goal, and that was, I will go to school. I want to study. I want to go to school. So when I'm in Belgium, I will go to school the next week. That was his idea. And then he arrived here, and actually he was confronted with a very harsh system that told him, but we don't believe that you're a minor. We don't believe that you're a child. So you have to prove it. And before you do that, you cannot go to school. So it was indeed as if he was running and he just hit a wall. And this was really, really difficult for him. So he was really in a depression for some months and was thinking what to do. Shall I go to a different country? And in the end, actually, it's amazing because he's such a strong, resilient young man. He decided, okay, now actually I know what is going on. This is, not the end of the games. It's just not physical games anymore. Now I have to do the mind game. So he, in the end, he's so analytical that he understands that, he's not there yet, going through procedure, finding a new way. It's indeed a new game. So we're going to make a film about him as well, but it will take some time because there's still so many things going on in his life, and we really want to capture it all. Also because, of course, his story is an example of the story of so many young Afghans who are on their way. It's one of the biggest groups. And it's also one of the groups that are treated with a lot of mistrust. So I think it's an important story to tell.
Yeah, and because it also, a lot of people who have seen the film, the whole shadow game, they're asking about Eski because he's like really alive, and these TikToks and short films are this like makes an impression. And I must say, I must congratulate you because you have chosen, I think you have chosen the right way to show this kind of journey, because it's at the same time it's full of energy and it's sometimes funny, especially at the beginning. Towards the end, it gets more darker. I mean, it's like it's not that funny anymore, but I think it's like really catches the experience. This and I mean, in Poland for many years, like, I mean, people were watching like films only, and this whole thing, like the migrants crossings, the crisis, it seemed like so far away because like usual people don't want to stay in Poland. I mean, the migrants who come, but now we have a situation on the border. There's crisis, and it's suddenly it is close. So people can somehow relate more to that, because if something is happening like many thousands of kilometers away, it's easier to turn your head in the other direction. And now it's getting different, although of course our government is not really like doing the right thing at the moment, but
it's also a very difficult situation, I think, you have at this moment, and it's such a cynical and dirty game that's being played on a lot of different levels. And in the end, we'll see that the main losers are, of course, the people who are looking for protection, and among them also unaccompanied minors, children like Eski, like Mohammed, who hear somewhere somehow that they can find refuge in Poland, and then they get stuck in this dirty game that's being played.
Yeah, as always.
It's awful. But I'm very happy to see that. I mean, we do get some reports, of course, about the situation here, and I always try to look also at the bright side, and I see that there are Polish people, locals, who are trying to help, and that's amazing. And I mean, actually inspired by that, there's a big action this week in the Netherlands on the 10th of December to put out a green light to show that we're all supporting helping refugees. So I think it's a difficult situation, but even in this, people are doing something, I think.
Yeah, there are organizations also helping, but it's a no-go zone. I mean, no one can enter, so it's different. But there are people who are doing the good job still. I also wanted to ask about, but I suppose maybe it's obvious, but you haven't met any girls like traveling alone.
We did meet some girls, but most of the girls, they travel with families
With someone.
because it's so dangerous and they are so vulnerable for sexual exploitation or trafficking. So that's mainly on the Balkan route, they travel with families, and on the African, Libya, Italy route, you see, of course, girls traveling alone. But I heard today that the 90% of them have been raped in Libya. So it's a very, very, very dangerous journey for girls to undertake. So that's the reason, one of the reasons why boys flee, but also because they are in an age that they have to, they are turning 18 almost, so they are going to be recruited by military groups or by the government army, and they want to escape that. So that's also a reason why they flee. And sometimes they are the head of the family. Actually, all of them that we followed were the head of the family because the father died or was crippled or unable to work anymore. So that's also the responsibility for their families is on the shoulders of the men, of the boys. So these are several reasons why we also choose to focus on the boys, because it's mainly their story. I mean, there are girls, but it's a different story.
And also, I think if I could add that, especially this group of young boys, but they're often framed as young men, are framed in the most harsh way, and the way that they are the fortune seekers, they are the criminals, they are the rapists coming to Europe.
It's like here, propaganda, government propaganda is like this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also the same in the Netherlands. I think it's happening all over Europe, unfortunately. And we also want to show that these are kids. They are teenagers that have different reasons, but most of them, they are fleeing from a war-torn country, and they are just trying to find safety. So we thought it was really important to really focus on their story.
Yeah. And I think it's also like especially the short films are suitable for showing to young people in schools and so on, so for educational screenings. So
yeah, also we have a 55-minute version of the long film, which is also shown in educational screenings, and it works really well because it is, I mean, these are their peers, so it's also very suitable for young people.
Yeah. And do you think you will work more on this, like making more films about the separate like characters?
Would you like to see more of them?
Yeah, I mean, because it's like it seems like it is the project that can go on and on with the different, like, you know, part this and part there and so on. It's like ideal for a web documentary, with new episodes.
Well, I mean, I must say, like, it is indeed a monster of a project, and we're making some shorts, like very short stories, which will be around 10 minutes, I think, called Back Home, and those focus on who are the family members that are back home, actually, and will they get family reunification, for example. So these will be some shorts that we're in the process of making. But we also have a really beautiful photo and multimedia project called A New Beginning, which focuses actually on young adults who also came to the Netherlands when they were children, and who are now in their early 20s and can sort of reflect on, what did that do to me as a person to come alone, to make this journey, but also to start a new life in the Netherlands without your parents here? Who do you want to be? Who are you? Who will you be? And so this project is really sort of the third step somehow in this journey. You have the journey, then you have the beginning, facing the system in the Netherlands or in other countries, and then it's about identity. So that's also a really beautiful project that people can see online, but it's also an exhibition, and it will travel around, the Netherlands, but hopefully also the rest of Europe. So, and there's a big campaign that we're doing as well, and you will see Eski and Mohammed, two of our main characters, actually going into the European Parliament, we hope. So we're fighting for that. So absolutely, the project is not over yet. We're we're just getting started.
Great. It is. I mean, it needs a lot of attention, I suppose, and I suppose it gets a lot, because I see that film is really has been shown everywhere.
Yeah, and it's also important for us now that we are out in Europe to have like a sort of, as we were talking about, what can you do, or what you can really easily get very cynical, or you want to look away from this problem. But we believe in the power of the people. So we have a manifesto that we drew together with the boys from the film. And we want as much signatures from the whole of Europe to support the manifesto, which is about Article 22 in the Children's Rights Convention, that we are obliged to protect children on the move. And this, what we are doing as Europe, is hypocritical, and it's violating Children's Rights Convention and all the human rights conventions. So that's why we are campaigning. And if people want to sign the manifesto, they can find it on our website on shadowgame.eu. And it would really help us to get the voices of our boys out there in the European Parliament and the European Commission. So they are also like on a go to campaign on the other kids who are still out there, in the border of Belarus and Poland, who are still out there in Bosnia-Herzegovina, in Romania, in Serbia, everywhere. And Mohammed and Eski are really angry that it's not changing, it's deteriorating. So we need their voices.
Yes. Okay. I mean, I suppose we can like put it also online.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
About it, make some news about it, so it gets heard more.
That would be great to share the manifesto. Do you have the link already, or should we send it?
No, but I think we can arrange that.
Great. Let's do that.
All right. So I suppose thank you very much for the great talk. It was really a pleasure to talk to you, and it was very interesting for me, and I hope also for our viewers. And I would like really to convince everybody who hasn't seen it yet to watch Shadow Game on at WATCHDOCS. So thank you very much, Els and Eefje.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure to talk to you.
It was.
And
thank you.
we hope to have your next project or part of this one again at WATCHDOCS in the future.
We hope so.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.